All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to step into the shoes of a judge who's overseeing a massive corporate rescue. Now, you might think their job is to save the company, or maybe to make sure creditors get paid. But as we're about to find out, their real job, it's something else entirely. It's about protecting the process itself. Let's dig into how they think and what really matters when the stakes are this high.
Okay, so where does our story begin? It starts with a number, and it's a big one. 2,100 crores. That's the estimated value of assets. We're talking mostly land here that were just completely missed during the valuation of a company in the middle of a rescue. An error that big, it changes everything.
Yeah, a mistake of that size isn't just a typo on a spreadsheet. It's more like a poison that seeps into the entire rescue operation, and it forces you to ask a really fundamental question. What on earth happens when a corporate rescue is built on, well, basically a lie? To figure that out, we're going to look at two real-world court cases. And when you put them side by side, they give us this incredible window into the core philosophy that guides insolvency judges when a rescue mission really hits a crisis.
So, here are our two key exhibits. On one hand, we have the Shinoj Koshy case, heard at the National Company Law Tribunal, or NCLT. On the other, the Ashmeet Singh Bhatia case, from the Appellate Tribunal, the NCLAT. One's about a rescue plan built on a totally flawed foundation. The other is about a challenge that came way too late. But here's what's so interesting. Both of them reveal this remarkably consistent judicial mindset. Okay, so let's get into the judge's head. How do they even begin to tackle cases like these? Well, their first job isn't to pick a winner or decide who gets the biggest slice of the pie. No, their primary mission is to be the guardian of the process itself. They have to make sure the rules of the game are fair, they're transparent, and that everyone follows them.
And this line right here, this is the key to understanding everything that follows. It comes straight from the judicial analysis. The Corporate Insolvency Resolution Process, or CIRP, is a collective process. It's for the benefit of all creditors as a group. It's not a private playground for one person to settle a personal score.
And that brings us to this huge idea, process integrity. Think of it like this. A judge's main job is to protect the credibility of the entire system. Because, let's be honest, if the process itself is broken, then whatever results comes out of it is basically worthless, right? It doesn't matter how good your intentions are.
All right, so let's see how this actually works in the real world. We'll start with that first case, Shinoj Koshy. This is where the judge was faced with that rescue plan built on that completely broken valuation we talked about at the beginning.
I mean, just look at the scale of this. It's mind-boggling. The valuers counted just under 4,000 square meters of land. But what they missed, what they just completely left out, was over 284,000 square meters. We're not talking about a cracked foundation here. The foundation was basically missing.
And this is where we see the judge's logic in crystal clear detail. Now, the creditors, they'd already voted on a plan. They used what the law calls their commercial wisdom. But the judge basically said, hold on a second. Your wisdom doesn't mean anything if it's based on garbage information. You can't make a wise decision using a map where 99% of the country is missing. So, faced with this total mess, the judge didn't just throw the whole plan in the trash. No, they were methodical. They took deliberate steps to rebuild the process from square one. First, order a fresh valuation. Let's get the actual facts. Second, replace the negligent professional. We need to restore trust. Third, a new forensic audit to make sure all the data is solid. And only then, after all that, was the plan sent back to the creditors. See what happened? The judge didn't make the decision for them. They fixed the process so the creditors could make a sound decision.
Okay, but it wasn't just the bad numbers that were threatening to blow up the process. Both of these cases also involved individuals trying to go it alone, breaking from the larger group. And this is where it gets really interesting, because both courts, totally independently, came to the exact same conclusion on how to handle the rights of thousands of individual homebuyers. They essentially applied what you could call the collective functioning doctrine. See, the law says that homebuyers, in a case like this, are treated as one single group of creditors. And to keep the process from turning into absolute chaos, they can't all just show up and argue for themselves. They have to speak and vote with one voice, through an authorized representative.
And this table just lays it out perfectly. The judicial consistency is amazing. In the NCLT case, one homebuyer tried to kick out the representative. The court said, nope, you need at least a 10% voting block to even try that. Then, in the NCLAT case, another homebuyer tried to challenge the vote that the group had already taken. And again, the court said, no way, the majority decision is final. In both situations, the judges prioritized the stability of the collective process over individual objections, preventing it from being derailed.
And that brings us to our third big principle, which really comes to life in that second case, Ashmeet Singh Bhatia. And that principle is finality. A corporate rescue has to have an end date. It can't just drag on forever.
In this case, the timing was everything. The appeal from this lone homebuyer wasn't filed right away. It was filed 3.5 years after the rescue plan had already been approved and was in motion. That huge delay became the central issue.
The appellate judge didn't mince words. They basically said, look, for a resolution to mean anything, it has to be final. If we let people come back and challenge it years later, it creates total chaos and uncertainty. It would completely undermine the whole point of the law. So the appeal was dismissed not just on its merits, but because it was simply too late. The judge protected the finality of the process.
So, let's step back for a second. When you connect all these dots, from the valuation to the home buyers to the late appeal, what's the big picture here? What have we really learned about the judge's role in all this?
What emerges are 4 really clear pillars that hold this whole system up. First, valuation integrity. You have to start with facts, not fiction. Second, collective functioning, making sure large groups act with a single, decisive voice. Third, finality, so that decisions have stability and meaning. And finally, holding it all together is supervisory jurisdiction, the judge's power to step in and fix the process when it breaks. This isn't just a list of rules, it's a philosophy for making the system work.
And it's so important to get the why behind all this. The judge wasn't trying to punish anybody, not the old valuer, not the professional who made the mistake. The goal wasn't punitive, it was corrective. It was all about stabilizing the rescue mission, rebuilding its foundation, and making sure that this creditor democracy could actually function on a solid, credible basis.
Which leaves us with this one last really powerful thought to chew on. The courts see their role as ensuring the game is played fairly, with accurate information and clear rules. But the responsibility for playing that game wisely, for making the right commercial decisions within that fair process, well, that rests squarely on the shoulders of the creditors themselves. The judge is the referee, not the coach.